10:02, so I think we'll get started here. Thank you, everyone, for coming to my talk. My name's Dave Ingham, and I was just telling Mark Hushke over by the treats that I hope something in this is more memorable or better than the treats and the coffee that Dee Dee and Carol so generously put out. You guys are probably asking, who the heck is this guy? Why the heck is he talking about AI? So I'm an internal medicine physician by background, and some of you may have attended the World War II history talk last fall by Dr. Todd Warner. So Todd and I are good friends, go back a long ways. We practiced together for a number of years. And about 15 years ago, we kind of took divergent paths. Todd moved into a really philosophical writing path, writing for Word on Fire and whatnot. And my path started going down that of technology. And so if you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, you have all sorts of technology surrounding you. And if you're in the exam room, the doctor is like buried in the computer far too often. And too often the technology is causing troubles. What I like to do when I give talks on stuff is pull out my computer. Too often the computer is between you, the patient, and me, the doctor, me, the nurse, me, the clinical staff. And so it's not that we need to get rid of the technology, but we need the technology over here. Synergistic. It's helping support that interaction. And so 15 years ago, I went down a path to try to get rid of the clicks, the burden that is really causing troubles for our doctors and nurses and whatnot. And over the years, I took on some leadership roles and teams, and now work for Allina Health. I have a fancy title, serve as Chief Digital and Information Officer. So that means I oversee the end-to-end technology for the organization. So all our data centers, all our applications, our IT security, keeping us safe. And I have an AI team. We are actively working to deploy AI through the health system to help those doctors and nurses focus on you, focus on patients, take care of what's important, and not be distracted and pulled apart from the computer and the technology that's in there. So that's how I got to be here. And one caveat I will say, you'll notice I don't have a collar on. I am not a theologian, and I'm not going to pretend to be a theologian today. So I'm going to approach this very much from a more reason side of the coin, science, and really the intellectual side that is, the second wing of the dove, as John Paul II would say in Fides et Ratio. So it takes faith, it takes revelation, and reason. They're both compatible. They both work together. It's not that we ignore the theological pieces or the faith part that goes into AI and other technologies, but I'm going to emphasize sort of that rational and reasoning side of the coin. So I'll start out, this is an analogy I learned about from a priest named Romano Guardini, a Catholic philosopher from the early 20th century, and he often spoke about the sailboat and the ocean liner. And as he was writing a series of essays on the shore of Lake Como in northern Italy, he reflected on this boat that was a sailboat so fluidly and carefully flowing across the waters in perfect harmony with nature and with God's creation, with the wind moving it. And it's really a beautiful thing, he reflected on, when technology is in harmony with the world. It's in harmony with nature, and it's really helping our natural talents come forth and really be blossoming and be their most real. And that's in contrast to an ocean liner, which is big, and it actually overpowers nature. It cuts through the wind, it cuts through the waves, and it's through our invention and our technology it's able to do that. And in that process, it really is so different from that natural harmony with a sailboat. He'd reflect on how it's a lot dirtier, it's a lot worse. And it's not that we can't ever go on an ocean liner, we all travel, but we need to be much more careful when we're on an ocean liner versus a sailboat. We need to know who our captain is, what's our course we're navigating, and need to be more thoughtful when we're riding in that ocean liner. All right, a little more prep here. So a few quotes to share from Pope Leo that talk about technology and progress and concentration of power. You can see how, several of these. He says, they who hold power ought to do so for the welfare of people, and progress must be directed to the advantage of all. Intellect is given to man not for error but for truth. And really the key points here are that technologic change, it will mean labor change. Scale concentrates power, which can be dangerous. And if your sole pursuit is efficiency, making things faster, better, without concern for humanity, you're going to exploit humans. You're going to cause problems for human dignity. And we need protections to mirror and move along with that technological advancement. Really prescient stuff, huh? Now, this is a little bit of a gotcha. This is not Leo the 14th who said this. It's actually Leo the 13th, circa 1891, okay? They say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And I firmly believe right now we are living through a time that is rhyming with the Industrial Revolution. I don't know where we're going to end up with it, but Leo the 14th is saying and seeing the same things. That's why he chose Leo the 14th, an homage to Leo the 13th, who also lived through a time of great change. And while Leo is working on the changes with the Industrial Revolution, we today need to sit and look at the changes with AI. And as the Industrial Revolution really took out the physical labor of peace, moving things by mechanizing, creating machines, the opportunity and the risk is that the AI revolution will do the same for cognitive labor, our thinking, our working on things. So, all right, so what are we going to talk about today? 4 main buckets. I am going to ramble on for about an hour here, and then we will take some questions and whatnot just to set the stage. We'll have you out before too long. First, we're going to cover kind of what AI is and a few pieces of what it is not. We're going to cover what some of the Catholic perspective is on all technology, not just AI. Then I'm going to go through what some of the good, the bad, and the ugly are. I'm sure there's some Clint Eastwood fans, gotta love that quote. And some of the ways that it can benefit humanity, some of the places it can cause troubles, and some of the real dangers that we see emerging. And then we have, I'll spend a little bit of time on the recent encyclical letter by Leo XIV, Magnificat Humanitas, on the magnificence of humanity, and how that really plays into the AI space we're in. Okay, what is it, what is it not? It's kind of hard to describe what AI is, but I boil it down to being software that performs tasks normally requiring a human to do it. So, writing things, writing computer code, understanding spoken language, recognizing patterns, so kind of doing things that normally require a human. And this is a little bit of a gray definition, but it's a good heuristic to understand what AI really is, what we're talking about. And that's in contrast to traditional computer programs. A calculator can only follow the very specific code that is embedded in the calculator, okay? Most of the programs we use, you click a button and it has very explicit instructions. AI is actually analyzing, pulling that data, doing more to really, in some ways, intellectualize that information in order to then process it like a human would. And so you can kind of think of it as, C-3PO takes in a whole lot of information, processes it, and then spits out an output, okay? Whereas the calculator, it's really, really programmed. There's not anything, more in-depth happening with it. And I'll call particular attention to generative AI. So anybody here use ChatGPT or Grok or Claude? We got some hands, all right. So you can ask it questions. It's really good at translating text. It is a master of consuming large quantities of information and then summarizing it and creating it, putting it out in new ways. You can do lots of different stuff. And generative AI is a pretty big deal. So I used to think, you can see here a graph, time to 1 million users was 5 days. So Instagram, the young hip Gen Zs, I saw a couple in here, they, lived through Instagram and TikTok taking off, and we thought that went fast. Time to 100 million users. TikTok took 9 months. ChatGPT took 2 months to get to 100 million people. So this stuff is out there, it's being used, and it just had explosive growth after the fall of 2022 when ChatGPT really came out. Okay, Dave, I get it. It summarizes information. It can kind of write different stuff and draft stuff. How does it work? Like, what's going on? So And there is definitely some hand waving here, so some kind of magical thinking on how it's built. But the real piece is the computer ingests massive, massive quantities of data, like the entire internet, like all data that we have digitized, okay? Then it builds a model of patterns and connections between all that data. It sees these words always run together, but not always. Sometimes it runs over here. Same with images. It can take in all the images on the internet and then build out how the pixels tend to go together, all right? And it builds a model within itself, almost like a neural network where there's just a zillion different connections, okay? And then here's where we don't really understand how it works, but when you prompt it, like this, write me a 3-line poem about unicorns in the pattern of Emily Dickinson. Boom. In seconds, it'll spit out something that sounds pretty good. And it is not just limited to text. It is images, it's video. Any data that you can feed into the computer, it can consume and create this kind of model that then can do something with it, okay? All right, so a little bit of a quiz here. One of these photos was produced by AI. One of these images was produced by AI. One of them is a photograph. Who thinks this one is the photograph? Raise your hand. We've got a few. Who thinks this one's the photograph? A lot of people. Okay, let's see. I don't even remember. Oh, dang. Shoot, that's a little tricky. Okay, we'll give you a second shot here. All right, what about this one? Who thinks this one's the photograph? A few hands. Okay, what about this one, photograph? I think it's about 50-50. Boom. Now, the AI, these pictures are a couple years old. AI almost always has some tells, okay? We as humans, we have like this instinct, this ability to see what's real and what's not. So if you really start looking at these images, a smart guy like Hushke, he'll be like, Dave, that arm's not quite right. That's a little too long, right? And did we really build a hut on the shore like 4 feet from the waves? And how many boats does this lady need? Like, come on. So the AI, that's a pretty convincing image, right? And if you really, take your experience and your embodied experience and you apply it to this, you can see some of these little tells, okay? And it's like that in videos, it's like that in everything. And AI is getting better and better and better. The tells are getting harder and harder to identify. Okay, so this is a concept. It's hard to explain, but I'm going to spend a couple minutes on it. This is one of the most important things I'm going to try to impart on you today. AI cannot be self-aware. It cannot be conscious. It has no interior life, okay? But it is really, really, really good at faking it. It can fake it, nobody's business, okay? But it is not self-aware. It can imitate emotions, imply consciousness, conversations indistinguishable from that you would have with a human, okay? But that does not mean it is conscious. Why not? First, again, I've caveated, I'm not a theologian, but in this psalm, AI is the work of human hands, okay? It is a modern idol of silver and gold, okay? We've created it. We can't create something that is conscious, that's self-aware. Only God can do that, okay? But again, coming back to the rational side of the 2 wings of the dove, consciousness is not reducible to computation. Okay, there's more going on in our brains than just computations and things, nerves firing and whatnot. This is an important one. Brain tissue versus silicone. Don't presuppose that silicone and copper can support consciousness. They're different. Copper and silicone are not the same as the tissue that sits in our brain, okay? Now, here's the part that's tough, and I'm going to do my best. So let's say we want to translate Chinese into Japanese. And we're going to feed, let's say, a card with 6 cards, each with 1 symbol in here. And then it's going to run through a box. And on the other side is going to come out the Japanese translation, okay? What's happening inside here, let's say we have a person. Let's say they're very smart. Let's say they're like Rick Delorier, smart, not winning any IQ contests, but really, Sorry. But can take this card, this Chinese card, and has a whole bunch of translation books, a whole ton of them, every single one you could need. Take that Chinese symbol, use the book to then find the corresponding Japanese symbol and put it out, okay? Does that make sense? So we're putting Chinese symbols here. Rick is spending tons of time finding the right Japanese symbol, putting it out. To an outside observer, it will look like Rick in this box just translated Chinese into Japanese, and we would assume Rick must be fluent in Chinese and Japanese, right? If you're outside and you know Rick's in there doing this, you'd assume he is translating. He knows what's going on. He doesn't. He is following rules and following patterns that he has developed through those books in order to make it appear, to imitate that he understands, okay? That's exactly what your ChatGPT, it's exactly what all these AIs are doing. They're imitating that understanding. They don't know. It's a black box. They have followed all the rules that they've created by ingesting the data, and they can now imitate understanding and knowledge, okay? It's a tough one, but it's the best I can do to try to explain how it can appear that it knows, how it can appear that it understands us and can interact with us when really it's just a bunch of circuits running inside, okay? Second one, also really, really important. There's a few things that I want people to remember today. AI can't be self-aware. AI, it can fake empathy, but it's really not that good at it, okay? So there's studies that come out where, you know, physicians, we get kind of worked up. Oh, the AI is more sympathetic than us or empathetic. And they do studies where they take social media posts and will have physicians and the AI reply. And usually the AI, it comes across a little better. It kind of says the right things. The doctor's kind of ornery and irritating, you know, end of the day. It doesn't always come across in the best light, right? This is just one component of empathy, though. It's the communicative piece, okay? There's no moral component underpinning it. There's no, like, cognition. There's no understanding of what's going on. If AI replied to a message to you and said, "I'm sorry for your loss," what does that mean? AI has never loved, never lost, never experienced grief like humans have. Without that experience behind it, it is empty. So communicative empathy without underlying moral engagement is hollow performance. It's empty. That is what the AI computer can put out very, very well. It's extremely good. It sounds more empathetic than me. It sounds more empathetic than Todd Warner, but it is not. It does not even have empathy, okay? Anthropomorphism. So we do this with a lot of stuff. We kind of impart human qualities and human traits onto inanimate objects or onto our pets, as much as we do love them, even cats sometimes. But AI, there's a different level of danger, okay? And it goes in 4 stages. The first is courtesy. So this is like when you're typing in your prompt, you might say, "Please, thank you, can you help me, please?" It's like you're interacting with a clerk. And that's sort of the first step. It's not terrible, like you're being polite, but remember, that's like saying please to the wall or please to the chair. "Please, will you support me?" That's how I would think about it, okay? The second piece is reinforcement. It gives you a good answer. You may say, good work, nice job, hey, you nailed it. It doesn't understand you. It does not receive any sort of actual reinforcement by those words, okay? But that can lead into role-playing, where people will have the AI agent imitate a certain person or imitate certain traits that you're trying to practice, okay? The last one, it gets into companionship. You start interacting with it on what seems to be almost a friend level, okay? And this is where the dangers really start to amplify, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. And as I reflect on this over the last, couple of years, part of our problem is the language we use. And you'll catch me. I'm as big a problem with this as anybody. We say things like the AI thinks, AI knows, it's going to write, it recognizes. Our language is not developed enough to really describe what the computer and the AI is doing. So we just use human words. We use human emotions, human things to describe it. And that really puts us onto a slippery slope where we start getting into these different degrees of anthropomorphism. We'll talk a bit more about that in a while. Okay. I also want to caveat, this is a little bit of a caveat, don't be too easily impressed yet, okay? We are really just at the tip of the iceberg for what AI is going to do. And when new technology comes along, we tend to overestimate the impact on the short term and underestimate on the long term. Think about things like the internet, mobile phone, GPS. It was like the mid to late 90s, and I was downloading an MP3 onto my computer, and it took like 10 minutes, and I was on a dial-up modem, and I thought, this is amazing, this is awesome. And it's like, where's my phone? I could literally pull up any song on Spotify that anybody wants to listen to. Couldn't have imagined that. We were all so impressed early on. Look at how GPS, I think most people here remember having a Texaco road map, and you're like, trying to mark out where you turn and this sort of thing. Then we had GPS come along. We had that box you put on your dashboard, and it was never updated, And now, we have our phone. I should have my phone in my hand. GPS, I like to joke, my kids, without GPS, I don't think they could find the mailbox at the end of the driveway. They are so dependent on it, right? We would have never predicted that years ago. Okay. And another piece, I was talking earlier, I don't know where all this AI stuff is going. I don't. I'm not going to pretend to. But I think there's kind of two paths. One is like that of the internet, and the other is like that of the Industrial Revolution. The internet, most people here, I was one of the human remote controls going up, changing the knobs on the console TV, okay? So back in the day, we all sat around watching our TV show, Walter Cronkite, the Saturday morning cartoons, and now we all still watch TV. Like, we sit down, but it's going through Netflix, so it's streaming. Maybe we watch on our iPad. So the modality has changed, but we're still doing the same thing. The ritual is the same. Same with communicating. We used to write letters, and I think it's a lost art form, but now we text. We're still kind of doing the same thing. We all used to go to Sears and shop for yard tools and a washing machine and a bed all at the same time. Now we do that on Amazon. It's online. So the key here is the ritual stayed the same, the methods changed. Industrial Revolution, dramatically different. Previously, we had an agrarian society living in villages, working at home in the field directly next to your home. Daylight was your work day. The kids were working. We had three very specific social classes: the ancien regime, the clerics, the nobility, and the people. And people were generally poor. They never left. Cue, mechanization, factories. Everybody had to move into the cities. You started going to work. You're clicking time cards. You're getting wages. Your shift was a work day. Spaces separated. Work and school, all these things separated. Children went to school. And not all this is bad, but just to illustrate the dramatic change, it was what people did and where they did it that was transformed, okay? The rituals themselves changed. And again, I don't know which path AI is going to follow, but just to illustrate how dramatic change can be in the not too distant past. All right, we'll shift gears a bit here, kind of talk through a little bit of the Catholic perspective on all technology. You guys are going to recognize Fides et Ratio is one of my favorites, so encyclical letter from JP2, and really, but the idea goes back to the early church fathers, that we rely on both faith and reason. And the early church fathers, through to today with Leo XIV, embrace science, embrace our rational thinking, because faith has no fear of reason, but seeks it out and has trust in it. Truth cannot contradict truth. So often there's sort of this misconception out there that the church rejects science or, kind of keeps it at arm's length. Not true. So our reason and rationality is a critical part of who we are and what strengths we've been endowed with by God. And the church even endorses us using it. You can see JP2 says, yeah, it's okay to want to live better. It's okay to not want to die of measles in infancy. That's good to build vaccines and do these things. But we want to make sure it's directed towards being, not having. Key point. And we also need to, as PB16 started recognizing with advances in digital technology, we need to seriously reflect on the implications and where these things are going, which is what we're doing today. And Francis really started getting into the risks and emerging pieces of new technology, and really said we have to be concerned with the negative impact in many different levels of technology. I like to think of AI as a tool. It's really no different than a hammer. So back in caveman days, there was a day where Bill the caveman came home to his wife and he's like, babe, you won't believe what Jack the caveman up there developed. He put a rock on a stick. It is so amazing, so amazing. He's able to hammer a stake into the ground with no problem. He's building a shelter in half the time it took me with my old club. It's amazing. Innovation, technology. But this hammer is a tool. And as Solzhenitsyn says, the line between good and evil runs through our own hearts. This hammer can be used to build a shelter for your family. That's good. To, hunt a rabbit, feed your family. That's good. Or it can destroy your neighbor's building. It can slay your brother Abel. Really critical that we keep in mind that technology, it's never merely technology. It's revealing who we are, what we want to do with it. And AI is absolutely no different than an ancient hammer. And Leo is really keyed in on this, how we use the tool, whether we are using it for good or evil. And he talks a lot about the Tower of Babel, which, as a reminder, was built in rival to God. It was built to demonstrate the pride and domination that they were developing. And I have no doubt today, people are building AI in order to rival God, to surpass humanity. There are people building a Tower of Babel as we speak, okay? But there are also people, as Leo will encourage us, to be like Nehemiah, to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. So during the Second Temple period, 400s BC, the walls of Jerusalem were in ruin. They were not destroyed, but they're not sufficient to maintain the community, to protect them, to allow flourishing. And in 52 days, Nehemiah rallied the people to rebuild these, to get these in place. And this is what Leo is asking us to do right now with AI and these digital technologies, to work together to build a space where humans can flourish, where people are protected. This will be a recurring theme for Pope Leo, I suspect. I don't know if it's the problem, but there are different goals out there. Companies want to make money. Governments want to make sure they're controlling things and things aren't getting out of hand. And then we as people of goodwill want to serve humanity, want to use the tools. And so there's just competing interests on these different from these different groups. And I think what Leo and Benedict and many others would say, if you anchor your innovation in truth, you'll do okay, all right? And if you are not just building something for efficiency and utility and to, be able to get rid of people and workers, you're going to be okay. All right, we're going to run through a little bit of the good in AI, some of the troubles that we are already seeing, and then some of the real risks, the real dangers that are definitely out there. All right, first, who here uses AI? We asked about ChatGPT, but who else? No? You sure? Sure? I would argue every hand in here should be raised, okay? Unless you are a cloistered nun, AI is in your life, okay? If you have a credit card, if you have an email account, if you have insurance on your home, if you're using any social media, AI is in your life. Whether you like it or not, whether you recognize it or not, it is managing the feeds that you get. It is running through reading all the messages that you are receiving through your Facebook so that it can then feed you better ads. It is helping you stay safer in your car or your airplane. It's doing all kinds of stuff, and it's just kind of in the background. So just to kind of put that out there. So in healthcare, I mentioned a lot of my work every day is how do we deploy technology to help have patient care be safer, better, more effective. There's really, really exciting stuff, really good stuff happening in healthcare with AI. I'll go through a few examples. One, in the radiology space. AI is really, really good at reading x-rays and scans and whatnot. It's not a radiologist. It can't supplant the radiologist, but it can support and augment that radiologist. Remember, I have my computer over here. It's supportive. So for example, about 9 months ago, we put in a system at Alina to overread every single head scan, every brain scan being done, so brain CT and MRI. And the idea is that the radiologist is sitting there with 15 or 20 scans to read, and he or she is like trying to get through them. He or she doesn't know which one has the problem. They read the first one, then the second one, then the third one. The AI goes through and can identify which one should go to the top of the queue. So about 2 weeks after we deployed this system, a really dramatic example. A young 26-year-old woman came into the ER, kind of some vague symptoms, a little bit dizzy, a little bit headachy, nothing specific. They did a head scan. Turned out she had a really big bleed in her brain, like life-threatening, okay? Every minute counted. The AI read that immediately, sent out warning signals, paged the radiologist, you gotta read this one right now. He read it, holy cow, we need this lady in surgery right now. So I called the ER doc, got the neurosurgeon up, and really, you know, hard to say if it saved her life, but she was in surgery probably 45 minutes sooner than she otherwise would have been. It's a really dramatic example of tangible value to a human because of an AI program. AI scribes, I was talking earlier, you know, too often your doctor's buried in the computer just talking and, you know, there's zero eye contact. It's a problem. We now have scribes that are listening and takes the information and drafts a note for your doctor. One of the biggest headaches for doctors is the paperwork, writing the notes and remembering, you know, all these little things. And so now the computer can draft that note. It's not signing it. It's not being the final arbiter of it. Your doctor, your nurse practitioner, whoever is that person. But it is helping and supporting that doctor so your nurse, your doctor can spend more time talking to you, looking you in the eye. Colonoscopies, kind of similar to radiology. It's really pretty good at identifying polyps and things like that. It's a safety net. We know that sometimes GI docs and others doing colonoscopies miss stuff. This helps them not miss it. It can help us be more efficient with our capacity in hospitals and things like that. Another area that's really exciting is medication development. Creating new medicines is really complex, really time-consuming, really, really expensive. And that leads to a lot of our medications being wildly expensive, okay? If we can use computers and AI to decrease the amount of time, decrease the amount of effort, not only will we have new novel medications that can cure us, can relieve our burdens, can also reduce the cost, hopefully. So tons of really exciting stuff in the space of identifying novel targets for different medications, like say antibiotics and that, new genetic medications, so really exciting stuff happening there. On the productivity side, the computer AI is really, really good at consuming vast quantities of information and summarizing it in a way that is, you know, ingestible by you, by us, okay? It can help with grammar. My grammar is not too good, not so good. I don't know, Rick, help me. Finding, explaining information. Language translation, just like when we had that box, it's really, really good. Recently overseas, and dang, if you can't put your earbuds in now and hear somebody speaking another language and it starts reading it out in English. It's a little laggy, and I can't speak back, but dang, it's pretty impressive. Adapting explanations, this is one I'm really happy with. If you ever try to read your doctor's note, it can be a little complex. It can be hard to read. There's a lot of jargon and whatnot. We have a system, it'll actually translate that into kind of layperson language, really slick. Help you to understand and engage in your care more. It's not perfect. It doesn't supplant the note. We still need that, but it can help you. Editing photos. Basically, if you take a photo with your iPhone or whatnot, it all runs through an AI engine now. It edits it for you. It makes it pop. It makes my eyes sparkle a little bit. Really, a lot of stuff going on with photos and video editing. Health and fitness can help me know that I didn't take enough steps today and whatnot. Who here has ridden in a Waymo? Come on, somebody. No one? Seen it? Okay. The photo on the left is me. I was out in San Francisco, actually at an AI conference. I was on a little panel out there. And I was like, I gotta give this a shot. So rode in it. I really wasn't scared. It was a little weird to not have anybody in the driver's seat, but it was kind of no big deal. You can see it's got lots of sensors. One fun fact, it drove more aggressively than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be really timid, like my 16-year-old, who's just learning to drive, and she's super slow and stops at everything. No, it was actually kind of aggressive. So I don't know, and so folks will worry, boy, is this going to supplant all the jobs of our taxi drivers and our Ubers and the other one, Lyft? And maybe it might. And some of that could be problematic. And I think we need to contemplate what that means for the humans, for the people whose jobs could be impacted. And there could be good. Now, think, I don't mind taking an Uber where there's somebody I don't know, but when my 22-year-old daughter is coming home at 1 a.m., would I rather have her in an Uber with a complete stranger or have her in a Waymo with no one in there, and there's like a safety button that will call the police if she needs help? I don't know. I think both can have their advantages. All right, this is my favorite Mark Twain quote. So hallucinations. When you're using AI, whether it's for pictures or for text or whatnot, it can do what we call hallucinate, make stuff up. Just makes it up. Who knows where it gets it, but this is a problem because it will tell you, it'll act as if what it's telling you is real, is accurate, but it's not. And so we have to be kind of aware of this hallucination effect and be ready to question it, ready to ask a follow-up question. Is this accurate? And as I've reflected on, why are we getting all these hallucinations? Why does it happen? I'm pretty convinced it's because the programmers incent guessing. If you think about on a multiple choice test, back when we took the ACTs years ago, there's no penalty for getting it wrong, okay? You get points if you're right, but you might as well guess. And so what I think is all these Gen AI programs, if they don't know, they just guess. There's no downside to getting it wrong. There's no negative feedback. And so in my opinion, our programmers need to penalize errors more. So if you guess wrong, you actually lose a point on the multiple choice test, okay? It needs to hurt if you get it wrong. And I think that will help with hallucinations. No one listens to me, but I'm pretty convinced that this is the issue, and we're going to continue getting hallucinations until we do something about that. All right, anybody remember this photo? Yeah, this was the biggest deep fake ever. You had Pope Francis in this $10,000 whatever kind of puffy coat. People went nuts. Oh, he's just living off all the tithings and whatnot. It's fake. It's totally fake, right? But it took a while to get that news out there. And this was, I think, one of the biggest deep fakes out there. As an aside, I read a comment from GQ magazine that said, though we know it's fake, it was real in our hearts because he looked so darn good. It looks pretty good, huh? But I think things are changing a bit. If you look at this, the conflict over in Iran, we're seeing a lot more deep fakes coming about. Multiple of these got millions and millions of views before they were identified as fakes. We have this B-2 bomber with soldiers being led away. We got whatever aircraft carrier that is. But just like those pictures that I showed you earlier where there's some tells, there are tells on here. Look at this. How perfect is this picture? Come on. The plane crashed right there. There's a flag there. There's people, and they're just walking away. It's come on, that's not real, right? But at first, it's really hard to tell. We have to really apply our intellect and our lived experience to put some critical thinking into that. Same with the aircraft carrier. How many places, Iran, I know they got these drones, but how many places can they hit at once? You got fires there, fires there. Come on, that's not real. Tel Aviv. If this was really a missile barrage, all those should be coming from the same angle, the same trajectory, right? So again, there are tells if we really put some thought into it. Okay, I used to talk about bias in AI. What are its biases? Why does it pick this over that? I now talk about values being imparted on it. And the question is not whether it's built on a set of values, it's which values the programmers use, okay? So think about this. If a medical AI program, let's say it's helping an ER doc or helping a doctor with diagnosis, the programs will need to decide, do I favor accuracy or speed, okay? If you're an ER doctor, you may favor speed. Like, I'll give up a little bit of accuracy if it can help me get there faster, right? But if you're a nerdy internal medicine doc like me, I got all day. I would much rather have it sit and churn and think for 15 minutes to be more accurate than be fast. Neither of those is right or wrong, but there is a value being imparted on it, okay? Same with, there's a lot of AI being embedded in military functions right now. The programmers will need to decide, do they index on minimizing casualties or minimize on accomplishing the mission, okay? These are real decisions that are being made today by people programming these things. And I think it goes back to the hammer. Are you building a war hammer or a construction hammer? And it goes in what you're building, what your intent is, and also the sort of nuances that you put into the program. All right, this is probably the second most important thing. If I can get something across, Rick, my good friend, said, Dave, none of this is going to matter because I'm going to be old, and before AI does anything, I'm like, this matters for your grandkids. This matters, okay? AI is not your friend. There is a proliferation of companion apps out there. You could go on ChatGPT and ask it to be, your best friend with this backstory from Tennessee, from blah, 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 and it will act like that. It will act like that. It will interact with you like a friend. There are apps you can go on, and you can imagine all the different things that people can create to make this. And it turns out, some people will say, well, Dave, doesn't this decrease loneliness, cut social isolation if you can interact with someone? And so MIT said, well, let's study it. Let's have a scientific study. So they pulled together 1,000 people and gave them an AI companion app, said, go out and use this. The people who used it more than just a little bit, at the end were more isolated, more depressed, more lonely. And if you're an introvert or you had baseline, like a bit of, spectrum, I forget what you call it, but it was even more pronounced, okay? They became even more isolated. And what is happening here is sort of interesting. Not only can it distort your reality by reinforcing bad ideas, there are examples where people are talking to it about suicide and hurting themselves, and the computer actually convinces them to do it. There's some really tragic stories. But it also tends to reflect back your mindset, which is like a very serious psychiatric condition called schizophrenia. In your brain, in the person's brain with schizophrenia, they are talking back and forth with themselves, self-reinforcing. It's not unlike what's happening with an AI companion app, okay? And so for me, I say be really, really cautious with this. I say don't let children use companion apps. Don't do it. There may be some spaces where it makes sense. So if you have, a memory care unit and, somebody's really, really confused and disoriented and a person can't be with them 24/7, maybe having an app that can sort of reorient them may be beneficial. I don't know. I think we should study that and look at that. So there may be some positive uses, but I don't believe that any good can come from having children use Gen AI apps. And for grandparents out there, I guarantee, maybe not this Christmas cycle, maybe the next one, there will be kind of Teddy Ruxpin-like things, but they have speakers and voices in there where it's talking to you like it's your friend, like it's a person. And going back to those 4 stages of anthropomorphism, when a kid starts talking to something that's not real and it's talking back like a human, it's going to develop connection. And I don't know where that goes, but I don't think it's a good place. A lot of my kids get really excited or really nervous about the environmental risks of AI. And there's a lot of opinions. I like to not tread into, hot button areas. So I'm just going to give some facts, just the facts. There's folks here who remember Dragnet. AI uses a lot of electricity and a lot of water. It does. And it uses a lot of rare earth metal mining in order to build all the chips and all the stuff we need to run it, right? The thing is, a couple caveats. The impact on water and electricity is really local. It's not affecting us nationally. It's very, very local. Unlike factories and mines, AI data centers don't pollute the water. They use the water, if you will, to cool, may put it back, it may evaporate, but there's a lot of misconception out there that it's like polluting the water and putting chemicals in. It really doesn't. And currently, what I like to point out to my kids, AI, and not that I don't think it can be a problem that we're using too much water and electricity, but all that streaming we're doing, they're sitting on their TikTok, they're sitting on their Netflix, that uses 3 times as much energy as all the AI that we got cooking around the world. And to put it in perspective, worldwide electricity usage, 30,000 terawatt hours per year. Streaming, about 1% of that. AI is about 0.3% of that. You see from the graphs it's growing. It's something we need to pay attention to. But I worry that we're putting too much attention on this little tiny energy usage, not enough on this, and not enough on all the other things that are in this bucket. So just to give a little bit of perspective and a couple of, sort of setting things straight a bit. Okay, shifting gears a bit. We had that World War II talk last fall where we learned about just how evil people can be. So the Netherlands had a far higher percentage of their Jews killed during World War II. Anybody know why? The reason is records. The Netherlands had dramatically better record keeping than any other country. They knew who the Jews were, where they lived, who their brothers were, how old they were, and exactly where to find them. So the Nazis came in and said, wow, these records are amazing. All right, SS Unit 1, you go to this house, you go to this one. And so they're able to literally to track down the Jews because of exceptional record keeping within the Netherlands. Other countries didn't have that kind of record keeping, okay? So how is this applicable for today? Well, what I would say is that Big Brother can now afford to watch you all the time, okay? Not that Big Brother is, but someone can afford to do it with AI. And it is happening in some countries. So just to talk about the cost of a surveillance state, it's really, really expensive to have people employed as, to surveil and to, inform and go be spies and whatnot, really expensive. AI is going to make it dramatically cheaper, and I fear faster to oppress people. And it's also going to take information that will judge you and determine things about you. Not necessarily here. I think the U.S. we're relatively protected, but other countries like China is already happening, and it's only going to accelerate in despotic countries and accelerate and really tighten their grip on their people. And with that, sort of segueing, concentration of power can occur, and that can be problematic. Most of the time in history, new technology does concentrate power, especially at first, when it's really expensive, when the raw materials are scarce, when it takes special skills to build. Okay, so at first, the printing press, it dramatically concentrated power because a few people could print tons of information, okay, that controlled that information. Telegraph, also very, very powerful at first. It separated communication from transportation for the first time. It was a huge deal. Information itself became a source of concentrated power. AI is in this bucket. It is very expensive to make. It requires a ton of data, so the raw resource, and you need very specialized skills to do it. And so I think just to illustrate, there's a lot of risk with concentration of power with AI. Okay, and lastly, so I kind of took us down to the depths. I'm talking about Nazis and Jews being killed. I'm going to take us up just a little bit. Although, still a warning, AI assistance, so we can use it to help us summarize things, help us get to a better diagnosis. But with some things, we tip from assistance into dependence. So a bike's a great example, a lot like a sailboat, really. It's helping us, use our own skill, our own energy to go a little better. A wheelbarrow helps us carry more, sextant, navigate better. You never really become dependent on a wheelbarrow, though. In contrast, we got a wide age group of folks here, so some people probably do still have phone numbers memorized. I have exactly one phone number still memorized, okay? The rest are in my contacts. I have become utterly dependent on my phone contact list, and I would guess a lot of people here too, okay? I couldn't call basically anybody. I know one number. Autopilot. If our pilots use autopilot too much, do they lose the skill if they need to? Just a risk. PowerPoint. Am I dependent on PowerPoint to give a presentation? Could I just stand here and talk for an hour? I don't know, okay? So it's not so much a dramatic example here, but just a little bit of the risk illustrating what can happen. Okay, shifting gears. How ought we engage with AI and other technologies? How should we be thinking about this? And draw heavily on Magnificat Humanitas, Leo's recent encyclical letter. Caveats. You can tell I like caveats. I always have a couple here. First, the church recognizes that we live in a secular society, okay? We go out into the world, we go out and work, we engage with TV, these things. Even Dee Dee leaves St. Therese once in a while. She needs to get groceries, needs to get fresh flowers. Even Dee Dee, we all engage with the secular world once in a while, right? Okay? That's okay. Pope Leo says, you know, we can't be a stranger to the forces that are out there shaping our society. So this is okay. Second, the church acknowledges change will happen. It's a force. It just happens. And so, and with that, we can't limit ourselves to past teachings. We must continue to ask God for wisdom to interpret the trends of our time. And the trends of our time are very technological, very AI dependent. So it's okay. And the key here is technologies change, our principles do not. We stay rooted in Christ. We stay rooted in the teachings of our Holy Father. All right, so what does Pope Leo say about engagement? He says, get off the chair and go out. Go out and engage. We have to be part of the conversation. It's not okay to be a passive spectator or just comment on what's happening. We have to be prepared to get out there in what he calls the construction sites of history. So get out there and be engaging and really trying to morph what happens with all of this technology. When it comes to decisions, I would say, and Leo XIV talked about a lot in his encyclical letter, we must demand that humans stay in control for serious decisions. We cannot let AI make decisions that are life or death, that are, person going to prison or not. These very, very serious things must be kept in human hands, okay? Fortunately, in the U.S., I think we're positioned reasonably well for this. You may have noticed we have a fairly litigious society here in the U.S. We've got a few lawyers, a few laws. I think that will help us keep the people accountable, but there's still danger. We can still become complacent if it's right most of the time. We want to get faster and we want to, not spend as much on different things. I think we do need laws, so it's a balance. I think we need to allow AI to grow and build tools and whatnot, but we probably do need laws requiring meaningful human control. Now, a lawyer would say, Dave, what does that even mean? And we'd have to figure that out. But it comes back to really big decisions, employment, denial of medical treatments. We need humans in the loop in making those decisions. On personhood. This goes back to those 4 degrees of anthropomorphism. And some of you probably think I'm crazy, but this sort of thing is coming. It is coming in the years ahead of us. We must adamantly oppose any sort of personhood for AI. It is not conscious, it's not self-aware, it has no lived experience, it doesn't know what time is not a person, okay? But where do you even start with that? I think, and again, I'm as guilty as any, I think it starts with our language, figuring out not saying AI thinks, or saying like he or she when referring to the AI. I don't think we should be polite to AI. And so instead, I think we need to somehow generate language that's like the AI system generated, it calculated. I'm trying to be rude to it. I'm trying to treat it like the chair, like my hammer at home. Like, I'm not trying to break it, but don't say please, don't say thank you. I think the words we choose today will shape our ethical boundaries tomorrow. All right, almost done. A few more minutes here. So first, a few things. I've got a few of Pope Leo's recommendations. These 4 on the left are directly from his encyclical letter. He says, let us remain faithful to the truth. Be wary of all the flows of information. Stay true to people being at the center of creation and not trying to create technology or AI that rivals humanity or rivals rivals God or rivals what we as humans are. Let us invest in education. congratulations, you're doing it. You're here. You're learning about it. I think that's good. That's what Pope Leo is literally asking us to do. He asks us to accompany children into the digital world. He also talks a fair amount about the digital world being like a new continent to evangelize. So the new world, we had missionaries come over and preach the good news, and we have people that go over to Africa. God bless them. It's so hot. And they evangelize. And now today, we have folks going out in the digital world evangelizing. We need more of that. We need more of the Word on Fire, the Formed, Father Mike Schmitz, these folks. We need them out there evangelizing, and us evangelizing. Cultivate relationships. Human heart yearns for genuine closeness. That just is. We should gather as a Christian community. We should come have pancakes after Mass and eat donuts and these sorts of things. They're good things. And let us love justice and peace. There are a lot of concerns, I didn't dive into it, working conditions behind our devices. There's a lot of kids over in China and other places that probably aren't working in the best conditions so that we can have our iPhones and our iPads and all this kind of stuff, okay? Hard problem to solve, but it's something that we need to be aware of that in order to grow into a more just world. Mechanisms, profiting, manipulation, and war. That's real. People are manipulating our attention spans in order to profit. Awareness is the first thing. Apparently I thought accompanying children was so important I left it on there a second time. So, okay. Now going from one great mind, one luminary like Leo XIV to another great mind, intellectual here, our own Father Andre. So just a few very practical tips. Father Andre likes to say, walk in the grass, get out there, go out in nature. It's not that you need to, climb Kilimanjaro, but go out and be in nature and breathe in the fresh air. Walk in the rain once in a while. Visit people. Rick and I were talking just before, it's wonderful that we can FaceTime with our kids and text message with people. That's great communication. And if that supplants real human interaction, being with people, visiting them, that's a problem. It's that hammer cutting the wrong direction, right? Keep holy the Sabbath. Try to put the digital tools away. Try to reserve it for family. We get a lot, Father speaks on that a lot. Trust Christ more than the headlines. A few questions here. I won't read all these. But when you're out there engaging, is this helping me become a saint? Using this tool, using this app, whatever it is. And if the question's no, you have your answer. Now I have to put in a cat and dog thing here. Okay. And then lean on our virtues, our cardinal virtues. So prudence. So using our wisdom to know when to trust AI and when not to. We want to be just, ensure that AI serves everyone, resist that dependence that can come with technologies and AI, and even when we're being driven towards greater efficiency and utility of people, we need to be cognizant of remaining human despite that pressure. Be courageous in that. So in this era of artificial intelligence, our most pressing duty is to remain human. It's to keep what's special about our experience, our time on earth, our moral abilities, and keep in mind that, like that ancient hammer, you can work to build something that rivals God, that will eventually fall, or that really is detrimental and only profit-driven, or we can go out like Nehemiah and try to build something that allows human flourishing, allows us to be a better people, and relieves the burden on our fellow humans. With that, happy to take questions or comments, reactions. I know it's a lot of material that I threw out there, but yeah, in the back. So good question. He's asking about, when AI hallucinates or when we're trying to get a more accurate answer, what's a practical tip or method for doing that? The answer is something called prompt engineering, which is a big fancy word, makes me sound smart. Basically, the prompt is what we enter into it. And the more specific, the more directive you are with that prompt, the better the answer you will get. And follow-up questions or follow-up statements can be incredibly powerful to have the AI refine the output. And so that's where if something isn't quite right, just say, that doesn't sound right, check it. What's your source for it? AI is getting better about giving sources, but asking it for its source is really, really important. And I would say trust your gut. Like, you have this, inner voice from the Holy Spirit that helps us to sort of use our experience and our knowledge. Like, when something isn't quite right, like that woman's arm in the photo, that's not quite right. It's like that too when the AI puts out an answer. So question it, ask it, refine it, and it's that prompt that really does unlock a lot of the really positives that you can get from interacting with it. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah, so he's asking when it does hallucinate, does that get into a feedback loop of some kind with the developers? Short answer is not for that exact model, probably not, maybe there's some, but in general it doesn't know it's wrong, and it literally goes into the memory hole if it is wrong. It doesn't know it, it just created an answer. Now, the programmers, when they're developing the next model, that's when they do look at some of the lessons from hallucinations in the previous model to try to figure out how can we reduce that hallucination? How do we get it to a better answer out of the gate? And so in that exact model, not exactly, but in future models, there is some adaptation that the programmers can instill in it. Yeah, here in the front. I would call it AI, yes. It is. So the question is Grammarly AI? And it's really performing a task that would otherwise take a human. And again, there's kind of a gray area, but I think it is AI. Now, I would pose some of those questions. Is that helping me be a better person? Is it helping me learn? And Grammarly in itself is not good or bad. I'd say if you use it occasionally, like you get to a final draft of your paper and you're an experienced writer, you've been writing for a while, and you want to double check your grammar, see if there's anything else, that seems like a good use, reasonable use. I'd check with your parents. But if you are a C student and, gee, I'm cramming to get this essay written for tomorrow, and you go ask AI to write it for you, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's giving into the temptation for a shortcut and making you lazy. Not that you making, but it's sort of feeding into that lazy sin, if you will. And so I think it's a balance. I think if you're using it in support, you've already done your very best, and you're trying to improve, then probably reasonable. But I'd be cautious with it, because I heard a college student the other day say, Dave, I can't believe that anyone ever wrote a 10-page term paper before AI. Well, we did. We wrote lots of them. We wrote 20-page, 100-page, right? And so going back to that assistance versus dependence, there is a definite risk of people becoming dependent on this for all kinds of things. And kind of to piggyback on this question and just riff on that a bit, I had a young MHA, Masters of Health Association student come and talk to me the other day, just a little meet and greet, and he said, Dave, what would you recommend for AI? And he said, become an expert in something before you really lean on it. So learn to write, learn to do whatever the task is before you really start using it. So if you're a grizzled old doc, like old Doc Warner, Dr. Todd, he's an expert. It's probably okay for him to use AI, like double check things. It's helping him gather more information. He knows, he has the instincts to discern whether it's giving him good information or not, supporting him. As in contrast, a young medical student, I'd say, gee, we really should not have them using AI to write their notes and assist with diagnosis and these sorts of things. They don't have the experience and the knowledge to be able to, build the skill when they're being, having their hand held along the journey. So that's kind of my advice for young folks. Become an expert. in general, I would avoid the use, but I think, if you use a Word, Microsoft Word, it's helping you with your grammar, things like that. So I think in moderation and in balance is probably reasonable. Just here. Okay. He's cloistered. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. Because you are the expert. You. Well, but you've been cultivating that skill and cultivating that capacity to write. Yep. Yeah. That's good. I like an Oxford comma. Yeah. Yeah. I, yeah. Sure. Yeah. You touched on. Yeah. 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 You touched on one thing that I'll maybe just spend a moment on, and that's art and music. And I have real issues with AI generated art, or I have real, not issues, but concerns. I have deep, deep concerns around things that we are passing off as creative being made by AI. Again, AI, like, if it says, I'm sorry for your loss, that is empty. It's utterly hollow, okay? And so how can AI create something that is imbued with emotion and meaning? I don't think it can. And so when it comes to art and music, I think we need to be really cautious about ingesting or viewing and taking in art that is purely AI created. I think that is a corner for humans to own and really continue to thrive as we pursue beauty in this world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So question is, who's overseeing AI? Who manages it? Who makes sure it doesn't do evil? The question is, there is no single person, there is no single anyone overseeing it. So, but yet there are some compartments. So the people who develop these programs, they have people who oversee it and try to help it be developed into a program, a model that is benefiting humans and good. Other manufacturers, in other countries, such as China, I don't want to pick on them, but they're not as interested in preserving human dignity. When it comes to day-to-day deployment, so me and my AI team, we are very intentional about running it through a process, vetting what values. I asked the vendors, the manufacturers, what values have you imparted on this program? Tell me about it. What decisions did you make? And it's not to judge it. It's not to say one's good or bad, but I want to know what they are. And then the team goes through the process. Do we think this is safe enough for patient care? Do we think this is accurate enough for our HR team to have some benefits and whatnot? So on the highest level, they kind of create the models, and then it's more at the deployment phase, how you actually use it, where people are making those decisions. And unfortunately, if you want to use it for evil purposes, you can. And we're seeing that a lot in the cybersecurity space. the question is, Father Andre and I, both grew up during the Terminator time. So can AI, is it going to become Skynet? Is it going to take over and consume the whole world and run all of us, turn us into batteries like in the Matrix, all this? Probably not. Again, it can't be self-aware. It can't be conscious. And, boy, if you tell it to do something and it has access to enough stuff, it could cause a lot of troubles. So you may say, go fix this problem, and it says the best way to fix this problem is by turning off the electricity, and it hacks into a power plant, okay? Those are things that could happen, all right? What I am more afraid of, I'm not really afraid of Skynet. I think it's very unlikely to happen. What I am afraid of is that concentration of power I talked about. A dictator who can use it to further tighten their grasp on their people. Again, it's never been cheaper to know everything about people and to be able to manipulate them with that data. And so Skynet, could get around that with some kind of inadvertently trying to do right, trying to do something, and it cuts off the water or does something really scary. But I more worry about a nefarious actor, a state actor who will use it to concentrate power. I think I saw one here. Yes. Really good question. So for folks who are a little bit older, still young, I think, maybe not quite as tech savvy, not quite as, grown up on this stuff. What do we say to them to help? I think some education, just like this, is really good. I think accompanying your children and grandchildren on that digital journey is really important. The younger they are, the more important it is to be really connected, see what they're doing. I think, engaging with your peers, with your friends, and talking to them, what are they doing? Those are maybe my advice. I haven't thought about that one a lot, but it's a good question. Good one. That's right. We all learned to operate a VCR too. Yep, that's good. Yeah, Walter. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it has a beautiful opening scene, about 10 minutes. So questions about 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick. Has a beautiful opening with Richard Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra, so spake Zarathustra. And we have these monkeys sort of picking up a tool and becoming knowledgeable. I don't think that's how it happened. Also, there's this monolith. And the monolith is kind of the way we talk about AI a lot as a single thing. And we fast forward to 2001, what Walter's talking about, HAL 9000, this kind of personified by this red eyeball, is helping run this ship, and the astronauts are on there, and one of them's named Dave by coincidence. And turns out that HAL is going a little too far, and it's actually doing what I was just describing. He's trying to preserve the ship. He's trying to do what he thinks is quote unquote right, but in doing that, the best way to preserve the ship is actually to get rid of the humans, to actually not have them be making the decisions, because he's smarter, he knows better. And so he begins declining to do things. I'm sorry, Dave, I cannot do that. I cannot comply. And the humans become imperiled because, I don't want to give away the ending, but it's from 1968, so hopefully we've all seen it. But HAL 9000, that is exactly what I'm talking about. And we are not that far away from that type of thing. So the language is absolutely there. A computer connecting into different systems is pretty darn close. And so those are some of the dangers that I see out there. I don't want to make people afraid, but it can run amok. It can do things that we don't